If we can't look to the Earth to see presently what a storm looks like that will lay glaciers, are there other planets that we can look to find a storm that would be like a storm that would lay glaciers? Saturn recently was seen to have a very large storm at its pole. Saturn is unique because Saturn has a magnetic field that is not in the same orientation as its geographic orientation to the Sun. So for instance, if the Sun is here and this is the North Pole with closing isobars, we have a similar orientation with the Earth, with the geographic poles and the magnetic poles. On Saturn, the geographic pole is actually out of alignment with the magnetic field. So the planet spins and is oriented to the Sun differently than its magnetic field. Why is that significant? Well, if a storm is electrical and there's an electrical influence that then helps a storm vent better, it could be, or would be, likely in general an organization that is very much like a capacitive coupling. What a capacitive coupling is if you have negative charges here in a plate or a conductive body and positive charges here, the charges attract each other and there's a field in between, a magnetic field in between those charges, or a static field. If such a field were to exist near the closing isobars of a magnetic field, like say near the north magnetic field or the south magnetic field, then that coupling would combat that organization, that electrical organization that a storm would have, would combat with the magnetic field lines as they close, the closing isobars. In contrast, a storm towards the tropics would not have such an interference. Very much like if you have a bar magnet and it's very catchy here near its pole, but if you get on the side of the magnet where the isobars are not so tightly wound, the magnetic field is not as strong. And that's precisely where we see tropical storms form. They form in the tropics away from the closing isobars of the Earth's magnetic field. Well, with the Saturn storm, and Saturn is a planet with intense lightning. It's a gas planet with very strong lightning, and its magnetic field, it does not correlate with the pole. It's oriented away. So an electrical organizations over its pole could help facilitate a storm forming there, and with the intense lightning that occurs all around it, form in an organization that correlates or combines with thermodynamic differences, cold and heat, as they try to move from the warm part of the planet to the less warm part of the planet, depending on its geographics. Well, so what would have to happen if a large storm were to form on Earth, just like formed on Saturn? You'd have to see the Earth's magnetic field move and weaken. And this is precisely what is occurring at this moment. The Earth's magnetic field is indeed weakening. The other thing that has to be considered is that if pardon me. The other thing that has to be considered is that if over time the oceans have become saline or more salty due to life modulating or dampening the salinity, and that salinity is in reaction to the fact that the sun over great time scales has become more luminous, then it also stands to reason that this is your mechanism of a super large storm or a series of storms, the superstorms, in that when ice is formed on the land and removed from the oceans where this has occurred, will necessarily become more saline. And like the planet has, in a sense, cooled relative to a warmer sun, the oceans have become more saline. The glacials are a sort of mini version of that on climate scales.